Tuesday live stream here on Inner Solutions. Get your questions ready. Get your comments prepared. We're here to answer any questions you have regarding anxiety, depression, whatever you're going through. I know it's the holidays.
Are we live on
We're going to try to do some different, what's the word for it? Just holiday themed questions tonight. Try to cover that holiday anxiety that people are going through. Jim's working on some technical things here, trying to get set up on Facebook Live so that we are live on Facebook and YouTube simultaneously.
We are
live. Maybe.
I think. Hey!
There we go. Alrighty.
Great.
Welcome. Anybody who's watching us, joining us from Facebook.
Great. Welcome.
Get your comments ready. As we were just talking on YouTube, we're going to try to cover some holiday anxiety topics this evening. The holiday anxiety is something that so many of us deal with. The pressure of being around people who trigger us, having to get gifts, having to receive gifts, having to worry about whether or not you're going to be alone for the holidays, whether or not you're going to be lonely on the holidays. This is a big concern. A lot of us struggle with overeating, overindulging during these next few weeks. And there can even be some post-holiday depressions that people are experiencing. So we're going to cover all of that, as well as much more. If you have a question that's not related to the holiday anxieties that people experience, that's okay. Go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll cover whatever you're going through tonight. This is primarily for you. Whatever you're going through, we'll try to cover it as best as we can. But that being said, I guess let's kind of just start. I had this topic of holiday anxiety in mind. Jim and I were actually just talking about it and preparing for a video that we're going to shoot. And the topic came up about how so much of the holiday anxiety that we feel comes back to not having any clear intentions of what this time is supposed to mean for you. I think a lot of us are kind of just pressured into whatever version of events that we're supposed to go do, whether it's what the commercials and all the societal programming tell us that we should be doing, whether it's the expectation from certain members of family of what we should be doing. And there's just so much external pressure and external just expectation on what we should be doing. And there's no inner intention. There's no intention from you to decide, what do I want this time to be about? What do I want it to be about? So, Jim, what is this time of year about for you? What are the values that you have about this time of year?
Well, I think for me it's one, making sure I'm managing the potential of being affected by the season.
Okay.
So starting with just the weather. So we talked a lot about kind of being affected by the weather, your environment. So making sure and staying grounded in activities that are good for me, making sure I'm exercising, eating well. And then as far as like the holidays, for me, this year's going to be very different as far as I usually go back to my hometown and spend it with my family. So this will be very different. So for me, it's about being intentional about shifting expectations, and shifting a bit of my values of what it'll be for the Christmas. So for me, this is kind of a really maximizing seeing friends, seeing local friends, setting things up to have mini celebrations here.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that I have a good network of people here. So just participating with that, focusing on saving money and really, really being grateful for allowing myself to continue cultivating what I cultivate for the rest of the year. And then also being really intentional with setting up calls to family, trying to participate where I can and squeeze what I love out of the holidays, which is reconnecting with people that I haven't connected with for a long time. So I've been consciously reconnecting with what I call my soul family. which is the family that's not my blood family, but I feel super connected to. That group of people that you could just call anytime, you just pick up where you left off. So I'm making an intention to reach out to them and really connect and revamp. So now it's not that I just can't see my family. Now it's like with this intention of reconnecting with all these people, I feel this even bigger kind of flood of like, man, I forget sometimes I have all these wonderful people in my life because I'm just, in the grind or busy with what I'm doing or with my immediate network here. And so far, this has been kind of the best holiday season I've had in a long time because it's just so intentional and so beautiful.
I love that.
In that way.
I love that. You touched on something interesting where, you mentioned this year you're not going to be able to see your family. I think a lot of people may be out there in a bind with, do I travel? Do I not travel? And if I don't travel, am I going to be, guilty about that? I know a lot of people are dealing with if they can't come home for the holidays, maybe there is some guilt coming from family about whether or not they're going to visit. Maybe you're using that as an excuse. Maybe you just do not want to go home for the holidays, and you're saying, sorry, I can't. The whole COVID thing, can't travel this year. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise for you. But whatever is your particular trigger around this holiday time, for some people it's family, for some people it's gift giving, other people it's just being alone. Whatever it is for you, maybe let's explore that. See, we're already getting some comments here. Let's see what people are saying. Got Noel and Dawn saying hello. Hi.
What's up, James?
Hi, James. How's it going? James says, this time of year more about family. Yeah. So a lot of people want to just spend some good quality time with each other. Going to heart surgery next year.
Wow. James, how are you feeling about the heart surgery? How are you managing? Do you feel some anxiety around that? I feel like that's a topic we don't cover too much. Yeah. Is like surgery or major event anxiety. So if you're feeling some anxiety, we'd love to hear a bit more about that, James. If you're willing to share, no pressure.
Yeah, that's a good topic that we could cover.
Yeah.
Hey, Adita, how's it going? Hi, Lisa.
Noel says, the holidays give me an emotional anxiety, and it is a very difficult time for me and my family, and I'm in a constant loop every time this month comes around.
Constant loop.
Noel was talking earlier on a separate stream about she has some negative associations with December as far as she lost some family members a few different years around this time of year. So it's kind of a bittersweet connection with family, but also, some grieving, some nostalgia, some potentially painful nostalgia.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's like, as you get older, if this time of year was normally spent with family and now it isn't, it can be a bittersweet experience. It's like kind of reminding you of how things used to be, and now you've got to confront like a new reality, just a new phase of life, and I can imagine that being really difficult for people.
Yeah.
We got James saying staying a little bit with family. Lisa says, hey guys, this time of year is always really hard with focus being on so many others, and I already struggle with the balance of finding time for me, but it feels really tough this year because I wanted to make it right for family. Yeah, it's tough. It's like if you are somebody who is always focusing on others, always taking care of others and not taking care of yourself, whether you want to call that people pleasing or just not being able to set some good boundaries for yourself, or just not feeling like you deserve as much time or something, whatever the root of that is, that can be a really big challenge for sure. Is there's so many people and you feel like now you've got to go above and beyond for all these people, not just your normal, not just the typical family that you're with all the time, but now all these extended family members and maybe some friends who are needing things, and you got to get gifts for everybody. And it's like there's extra pressure in the air, extra expectation to get things done. So yeah, that's a big one. Let's see. We got James saying yes. We got Adita saying, my goal is to visit my friends. Done being the victim. I'm going to cherish this. I love that. Hey, going to cherish this Christmas.
What does that mean, done being the victim, though? I don't want to hear more about that. And it's a great goal. Yeah, visit your friends. And great to cherish this Christmas. Adita, what is the plan besides visiting friends? What's up, Kareem, my brother?
Good to see you.
what's your plan besides visiting your friends to cherish this Christmas? Maybe there's some internal stuff that you want to,
Yeah.
maybe you'd be willing to share.
Why
Beautiful.
don't we go on off that tangent of feeling pressured around this time of year? You had a great phrase for it. It's like the holiday rush. The rush.
Yeah, there's a lot of rush, man. And so we're working on a series, so stay tuned in the YouTube page for a 4-part series on holiday anxiety. And so when we talk about the rush, we're talking about, number one, just the literal physical rush, traveling, gift buying, going into stores, fitting things in your schedule, seeing as many people as you can. Then there's the rush of like, the kind of manic rush of like, let me overindulge, let me overdrink. I've got all these parties to go to. I've got these fun things to do.
Yeah.
And then there's the rush of like just emotion, right? The pressure of seeing family, being around people who trigger you a lot of the time, who potentially can trigger you. For all those of us who suffer with anxiety, it's like feeling like shit in a situation where we can really be stuck in our heads in a situation where everybody else seems to be celebrating, and we look at social media and everybody's having a great time and it's joy and it's this, and the rush of feeling like shit is a very real rush. So there's a lot to unpack and break down in that.
I feel like, where to begin? It's like, let's start with the pressure around having to get everything done all at once, right? Having to see everybody, having to get all the gifts, having to travel and not be late, always being on time and organized. It's like, on top, it's easy to get overwhelmed in all that and say, I've got to get everything done or else something bad's going to happen. I've got to make everybody happy or else, I'm a failure or something. People are going to be disappointed with me. This is super understandable, but at the same time, you got to kind of take a step back from that and realize, at the end of the day, this is still a finite period of time. This isn't like some, never ending. It's like 3 weeks that you're really looking at here. And during those 3 weeks, you're not going to get everything done. And especially if you are one of those people that when they make a to-do list, it's like way longer than it needs to be, or you're just really optimistic about how much you can get done and how many people you can go see. And eventually that leads to disappointment because the expectation was too high. So I would recommend, taking a look at that. Like, what are your expectations around it? Do you feel like you have to see every single person, or else do you feel like you have to do all the normal things, like go get the pictures done over there, go do the skiing and the skating over there, and whatever your holiday rituals are and whatever your traditions as a family is? Do you feel like the pressure to get all of those done in the same way? And is there this expectation that you're putting on yourself that's causing that rush? That's a really big one that you can easily start. What's something else? I'm trying to kind of break down, like, what is the other, you mentioned the factors around the emotional rush of people in general. That's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us who are sensitive, so a lot of us that suffer from anxiety also have a high level of sensitivity, meaning that there's just a lot going on, meaning like maybe even a lot of empathy. So if there's a lot of people, a lot of different characters, a lot of emotions flying, a lot of sadness, a lot of, with any group of people, you're going to be at risk with empathy. So starting to really prime your mind and visualize what it feels like to go through a party and not pick up on other people's emotions, to not be affected by your Aunt Nora, who is chronically depressed or chronically having a hard time, or, your father who's newly retired and doesn't know what to do with himself. And there's a lot of emotion flying around. Some techniques for that are just, practicing groundedness. You can do that through meditation. I really prefer visualization. And then we also use some tools that may sound corny, but work really well, which is like visualizing you kind of have a shield or a force field around you, so that when somebody's emotion comes at you, you realize, hey, that's theirs and it can't get in my force field or bubble. We use that a lot with kids, but it works really well with adults too. Or some kind of energetic shield. And then just like also knowing that it's kind of an indulgent time. It's kind of a time where people are, high as in like high emotionally, or drinking, or maybe in a state. And there's going to be some nostalgia mixed with happiness, mixed with joy, mixed with sadness, mixed with longing, mixed with a lot of emotions. Yeah, it's just a lot of emotions. It's really easy to be triggered at this time. It's going to be a lot of childhood emotions that come up. I mean, most of us can't help but we see a Christmas tree or a Hanukkah dreidel, or what do you celebrate again?
Eid.
What is it?
Eid.
Eid?
Yeah.
Eid? I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a tree or a stick or something?
No, it's just twice a year, and it's different because it's based off the moon cycle instead of the like a solid date. It's kind of changing all the time too. So
what do you guys do?
We usually, my family, we just eat together.
Have a little meal celebration. Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, it's you can't help but remember, gifts you've gotten as a kid, or Christmas and the holidays are just such a foundational time for so many people. You're on vacation from work. It's like there's a whole bunch of exit from your normal life, and there's such a risk. I know for me, especially, I used to have such a bad emotional hangover after the holidays. It was really hard to reintegrate. And part of that was I would go through this big high of overindulgence, of seeing all these people I hadn't seen, of all these, hey, Joe, it's this. And then you come back to your life, and there's a bit of a crash after the high. And that can be really hard.
You got that big Italian family where it's
like... You get a big Italian family, but then also just with friends and going to the bar or going out dancing, and just these big gatherings where it's just, it's like just, serotonin, dopamine, these flooding with chemicals.
It's really easy to feel like a twig in a big river too, where you're just kind of, if you don't have a big personality, it's like all these characters popping up in your life.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get overwhelmed by what they're feeling or what they're thinking. And I loved what you said earlier. You said their thoughts are not about you, they're more about them. So it's like if you're in a crowd of people, whether it's your family or your friends or whatever, and there's this sense of like, oh, what if they're judging me? What if they're thinking about me? What if this person's making fun of me? It's like there's this feeling of pressure to make a good impression, or to be yourself, even though maybe that's difficult. But whatever it is, it's like you kind of have to remember that when people are in a crowd like that, most of the time they're just thinking about themselves. You don't have to feel pressured to be a certain way. You don't have to feel pressured to, care what other people are thinking, because they're most likely not paying attention to you. They're most likely just thinking about themselves. And if they happen to be thinking about you or judging you in some way, that's their problem. That just kind of says more about where they're at, and if they're cranky or if they're moody or whatever, and it's more of their problem than yours. That's a really big thing. I love how you mentioned the force field, or it's just almost like a reminder that all these emotions going around, they don't have to stick to you. They don't have to be yours necessarily.
It's a hell of a practice, though, especially if you've grown up as a people pleaser. That I definitely have some big people pleasing parts in me. And it can just be intensified with close relationships like family, because that's such a deeper connection than just an acquaintance. And so they know you more, and there's so much of a history of triggers, and it's just like no one can push your buttons like your family or romantic partner. There's just no one that can, because you have such a deeper connection with them and a history.
100%.
Tons to talk about with holiday anxiety. So guys, put your questions or thoughts or what you struggle with in the chat, and we'll let that guide, because we could just riff about this for hours and hours, but we want to get to your questions.
James says, heart surgery putting serious in my life, but got family supporting me at this time. Family support is great. I love that. That's another thing about this time of year. It's like, if you do have that family support, be grateful for that. I'm glad you have that, James. It's beautiful. Aditya says, I'm thankful for Jim helping me find myself again. Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, Jim's an amazing coach. Amazing coach. So glad to work with him here. Kareem, good to see you, man.
Guys, just as a side note, in the description of this video, if you want to schedule a free coaching session for first time we offer one free coaching session per person. If you haven't scheduled that yet, there's a link below if that's something that interests you in the
It's an amazing,
get some help.
amazing free call. It can honestly help a lot. And description in the top of the chat. Let's see. Don says extra December anxiety.
Talk about it, Don.
Yeah.
What's going on with your anxiety?
Jim says this year's hard.
I hope we get to talk about gift giving too.
Yeah. Plan is to overcome the fear in my life, accepting my symptoms and slowing down, sitting with my feelings 3 times a day for 10 minutes. Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Being quiet. Yeah. I did it today and I feel good and calm. I love that. I think that's a good time to plug in the normal meditate. If you haven't started that practice, if you used to do it, but you let it go recently, meditation is just one of the most effective, downright beautiful practices. And it can really help you stay grounded this time of year. I know if I'm in like a family setting and there's a lot of people and a lot of energy and emotions and chaos, it's beautiful, but it's also extremely stimulating. And I definitely need to go every 4 or 5 hours, just go and sit by myself for like 10 minutes just to slow down. Stop everything and just kind of like, you know, and then go back to the fray.
When you stop and slow down, though, what you're doing is there's so much energy and so much kind of old thought patterns going down. You're just taking a second to decompress, kind of reset, recalibrate, and set your intention. And sometimes that can look like literally sitting down, being quiet, just doing a little bit of reflection. How's it going? Like, how's this party going? Do I catch myself being stressed out? Do I catch myself feeling like social pressure, or do I feel triggered by family? And then just kind of recalibrating. Like, for me, it's a lot of self-coaching. Like, hey, just calm down, eat well, look people in the eye, just enjoy the company. Like, there's nothing to get done. There's nothing. It's just about being here. And, go enjoy your nephews, go enjoy your brother, ask questions, be engaged, be present. And so for me, that's like taking even 5 minutes to do that, or 10 minutes is just like total reset. My favorite meditation is the meditation you posted on our YouTube page. And it's all about just stopping, like just creating space to stop fighting urges, just to let whatever's going to flow through you and process out. And there's always one point where you just say, it's okay. It's okay. And it resonates with me, because it's like, I feel like sometimes all day I feel like I'm just pushing and pushing and pushing, and that it's just okay. And then you say, this is surrender. And it's just not like a giving up, but just a surrender to just take a break, like just be. It's such a powerful, it's a beautiful, powerful thing.
Yeah.
Powerful meditation.
Take a look at that, guys. It's on our YouTube channel, and I think it's called the a meditation to help release stuck emotions. Yeah. And it's all about just allowing so deeply that those emotions are just processed. It's really the paradox of our lives, that the more that we allow something, the more it can just pass through us. Typically, we resist and distract and just fight our feelings, and it keeps them kind of trapped in the body, so to speak. And when you finally look at them without resistance, without any kind of fight, there's that surrender. Not a surrender of a giving up, but just a surrender of like, I won't fight with you anymore. And then you just let it in, you feel, you experience fully, and then it comes up and out, finally, up and out. And it leaves your system. You've now processed that emotion. It's a beautiful thing to do. I'm glad to hear that you're doing that, Edita.
Yeah.
Lisa says, huge expectation rushes. Yeah.
How do we deal with it?
Yeah.
What do you do?
She says, even more pressure this year with desperately wanting to see family, but scared to death about getting them sick. Yeah, that's a big one. It's this inner battle of like, well, I want to go see my family, but I also don't want to take the risk of seeing them. And really, it's like, that's a good opportunity to practice that communication, where it's like, call that person and tell them, this is how I'm feeling. Like, hey, mom or dad, hey, brother, sister, hey, whoever, say, I want to come see you, but I feel a little torn. I feel kind of like, I don't want to get you sick. What do you think? What do you think I should do? And just have an open conversation about it. You're not necessarily trying to figure something out. It's just kind of an opportunity to share, and at the very least connect on that level.
There's a lot you can do too, as far as like, COVID. There's a lot you can do to mitigate the risks, whether it's quarantining, getting a test. There is a lot. So I know a lot of like my family is just very like kind of all or nothing. Like, it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. It's like, well, and I had to kind of slow them down and say, well, let's sit and talk about what would it take for you to feel safe? Would it take for me to quarantine? Would it take for me to drive that far? Would I need to get a test the day before? Would that become? And so once we did that, we started getting somewhere, and it helped. Sometimes these these problems can seem like these mountains to climb, when it's really just like, well, there's tests, there's quarantining, there are options to feel safe. What could we do? Could we meet outside? And
that's a really good point.
There's a lot you can do.
Really good point. To be creative, it's like, it's not all or nothing. It's not, either I go see my family and I take a huge risk, or I don't see them at all.
Right.
It's like, there's ways to minimize the risk. Let's see. James says, no, I don't. Relax more this year. Surgery is emotional. Yeah, man, it really is. It's scary. It's like it can come with all these fears of like, what if the surgery goes wrong? What if I'm never back to my old self? What if there's a complication? It's
James, what would you say are some of your fears with the surgery? If you're willing to share, if it's too much, don't share. But we'd love to know. We did in our group coaching, we talked about reframing and thought replacement, cognitive behavioral therapy, and it was amazing just to look at the thought, find out how it's distorted, where it's distorted, and then replace with a much more true, more grounded thought. Just the power of that is so, to shift your emotion is so powerful. So we'd love to kind of help you through that, James, if you're willing to share some of those thoughts you're having about the surgery.
Yeah.
James says, just don't want to get anything thick. Edita says, lots of emotions from the past. I need to just accept. Yeah, Edita, you want to be careful about, you're right that the kind of goal is to be able to accept the emotions, to be present with them, to process through. You want to be careful about shoving them in, though. I need to accept. I just have to accept. It's true that the acceptance of it and the lack of, more so releasing the resistance of it, is what'll help it flow through. But just be careful about the pressure, because that can be a new pressure that goes on top of your anxiety and just it makes it even worse.
100%.
Kim says hi.
Hi.
Edison says hi, Kim. Yeah, we're just reading random messages here.
Kimberly says, I'm scared of everything health related. Being an EMT surely doesn't help. Surely not. Yeah, being in that situation, that's an extra difficult challenge. In terms of health related anxiety, I had a call recently where we kind of just did the classic CBT thing, where we went down the line and we looked at what are all the worst case scenarios that we're afraid of when it comes to our health, and oftentimes how do I put this? When we feel this fear of having an illness, or having a diagnosis, or having some serious complication, it's not always the obvious thing. It's like some people say, like, well, I don't want to have it because obviously I don't want to die, and I don't want to be sick. I don't want to have to go through that. Sometimes it's also a way of keeping our mind occupied, where it's almost like there's a part of you that needs something to solve. And so by having a health issue, like, am I going to get diagnosed with this or that? Is that sensation or that symptom a sign of something more serious? Let me Google that real quick. Let me go do some research and freak myself out. That behavior, in a way, is like a response to keep you busy, to keep you from actually confronting the kind of deeper issues of, well, what would happen? What would happen if you got sick and you had to rely on other people? What would happen if you got sick and maybe you lost your job? What would happen? And those things aren't fun to think about, but if you're triggered by that, it's at least something that maybe is worth exploring, because as you become comfortable with these worst case scenarios, you realize that, number one, they're extremely unlikely and honestly not worth thinking about. But number two, when you come to there's ways to come to peace with these situations and these scenarios, and that you realize that they're not the monsters that you make them out to be. You know, these overwhelming situations. You had a thing on that recently that really tied it together for me when you said how health anxiety is really just a reflection of unresolved things in your life.
It sure can be. Yeah, definitely. But it depends on what the health anxiety is. It health anxiety for you or health anxiety for others? Mm-hmm. I mean, both can be related. A lot of times when you're really scared of dying, you're really, really scared of things being left unresolved, not feeling at peace with either where you are in your life, professionally, romantically, whatever, kind of not being proud or not being accepting, at peace with where you're at in life, or with some kind of external relationship that there's some sort of unspoken, unresolved issue. Your parents don't understand you. You have this secret that you haven't shared with, your sister, or, there's been a fight with your brother that's unresolved. And it could be really obvious things. There could be really not obvious things. Feeling disconnected with your family and feeling remorseful about that. But, the other thing I want to say, Kimberly, is like, just on a kind of surface level, being an EMT is hard. You're in traumatic situations like consistently. You're seeing injury, you're seeing pain, you're seeing people struggling. And a lot of times your hours are not so great, so your sleep isn't so great. So part of it could be that your nervous system is really fried too, Kimberly. You really have to make sure you're getting your sleep. Are you working the overnight shift and your circadian rhythms are jacked up? Like, that's going to have a huge effect, on your health, on your ability to kind of process through and be strong to disarm the anxiety. And yeah, being an EMT doesn't help with everything health related, because you're probably exposed, a lot.
Yeah, that's where those grounding practices to continually honor your own space and to kind of sift through what is mine and what is this other person's. And like, as Jim said, if you're constantly around people who are going through something that from their perspective is traumatic, it's on some level, you got to protect yourself from that.
Definitely.
Don says, seeing in-laws that I don't want to see. My excuse this year will be COVID.
Nah, Don. No, we don't take the easy. No, I'm just kidding. Don, what is it about your in-laws that you don't want to see? I'm really interested in the dynamic. Every relationship that you have that you hate is a gold mine for you. It's a gold mine of growth. If you could just swim through the waters of discomfort, set boundaries, have tough conversations, that is like the growth, that is miracle growth for growth.
Yeah.
These shitty situations that you don't want to be in with people that irritate you and irk you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
The analogy I used to tell people is like, you have a trigger, meaning like when someone says, oh, he really pushes my buttons, or they really push your buttons. It's like, the immediate reaction is, well, let me not be around them so they can't push my buttons. But you know what? When someone pushes your button, that reveals where that button is. And when you reveal where that button is, then you can start the process of healing that button, letting go of it, so that you cannot be triggered in that way anymore. And that's real change. It's when you have identified a bunch of triggers, a bunch of buttons, and you've processed them, and now you can go into the same situations that would have bothered you before, but now no longer bother you. That is real freedom. It's people say, I want freedom from this person, to be free from their antics. Well, it's a lot better to be free to be around them, free to experience their antics and not be bothered at all. And so that whenever somebody is triggering you, as Jim said, that's a gold mine. Where that button is where the healing can happen.
it's the trigger is gonna, if you should you choose to accept the mission or the challenge is to like reflect on it, write it out. What is going on? What would you have to believe to be triggered in this way, or to feel the way you feel by these people? Now, this is obviously barring that these people are just emotionally, which is emotionally abusive combined into one, or they're physically abusive, or there's something really extreme going on in that case, which obviously you'd have to protect yourself. But Don, I'm telling you, when I go around my mom, it's just, it's a gold mine. It's a gold mine. It's a gold mine. I love her to death, but there's no one that triggers you like family.
Yeah.
Carmen, what's this cute little character?
It's like two hard eyes with a Christmas.
Is that you, Carmen? Carmen Camino. What a cool name.
Adita says, grounding meditation, that love it helps me so much. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Adita. And
sorry.
She asks, Aaron says, same here. Don says, where is the meditation? It's in our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and you just type in Inner Solutions and you go and it'll be the meditation called Meditation on Releasing Stuck Emotions. So just look that up. It's really, really helpful.
I can post the YouTube link. Yeah, let me post the YouTube link.
Okay. Lisa says, I just don't want to let anybody down. So, yeah, I mean, nobody does, right? Nobody wants to let people down. But at the end of the day, what is your definition of letting them down?
And what happens when you let them down?
Yeah, it's like, is letting them down... Because some people, when they think of letting them down, they think of like, honey, I've gambled away the kids. I've gambled away the home. And that is, they're letting them down. Other people, it's like, I really burned the dinner tonight. I'm sorry I let you down. It's like two different extremes of how much pressure you put on yourself. If you, from your perspective, letting people down is just not being perfect, then yeah, of course you're going to let people down all the time because nobody's perfect. So, I'd be curious to hear, Lisa, when you say let anybody down, what does that look like for you? What does it mean to let someone down?
Yeah, right. Right, exactly. Well, what does it look like? And then what does it mean if you were to let somebody down? Does it mean they're not going to want to be around you? Does it mean you're a bad mom? Does it mean you're a bad partner? What's the meaning there? And some of it might hurt to say, but I guarantee you that some of the belief that's tethered to it is just not based in reality. It's based on some kind of imbalance or some kind of inner conflict.
Yeah. Wendy says, I second Adita. Jim is a great coach. Yeah, he is.
I don't pay these people for these testimonials. I don't.
I love it.
I should.
Let's see. So she says, Jim and I practiced today. Went to the store with my friend. I felt no anxiety, was excited about things in the store. Practice helps. I love how you ended that. Practice does help.
Yeah.
It really does work if we put in the time.
Yeah. So she's talking about kind of exposure. Went today into a situation she was uncomfortable with some support. So some intelligent support behind her. And the support helped and was able to mix with kind of help her not feel alone, give her some like just a little bit of reassurance with some coaching from a friend of hers. And it's amazing. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. That's what exposure therapy is. Go look at the store if you can't go in. Just go stare at it until you're bored with it. For real, yeah, until you're bored with it. Then take a step closer and as close as you can get. Then go in. Then just sit there, be bored. Then you're finding and you're seeking out these things so that your body and your mind have a chance to adapt to the surroundings and the settings. And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and eventually it's no big deal.
100%.
Can you think of something that you were scared to do and then now you're not scared to do? What about this live stream? This is a perfect example.
Yeah, this is a good example.
For you.
When we started the live stream, I think it was like pressure, right? Pressure to be entertaining, pressure to be informative, pressure to just do a good job and do right by these people. And also, it feels like a presentation, right? This is a form of public speaking. And I think definitely that can trigger some things in me. And so as we've done it more and more and more, it's like, it's not as big of a deal. It's at the end of the day, we are just having a connection where it's like, there's people asking questions. We're doing our best to answer them. And the way that the mind makes something bigger than it really is starts to diminish over time.
How did you how did you go through that in the beginning? Do you remember?
I do. I think I remember just like, it's exactly what you said. It's like, there's some sensations here. I guess I'm uncomfortable with this. And that's it. It's like, I guess I'm uncomfortable with this. But that doesn't mean something bad's about to happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I need to stop. It just means like, I currently have some uncomfortable sensations. And then you just keep going and you just keep going. And very soon the body's like, I guess this is not a problem because we're still here. It's the same thing with stores, same thing with driving. But at the end of the day, it's looking at those sensations that you feel in that moment and remembering these are just sensations. They're temporary, they're harmless, and they will pass. And as long as I stay here in this moment, eventually they'll pass.
So you're stopping that feedback loop right at that thought. It's literally just sensations. If there's a thought triggered, it's just, no. You just have that replacement thought ready.
Yeah.
Just the truest. And you've practiced so much at this time that it's just like, boom.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the feedback loop, we're talking about when you feel a sensation or you have a thought that triggers a sensation. So it's like, oh my God, I have to, go talk in front of people. And then you feel the sensation. Then it's like, what if this and what if this and what if this? And we teach that you look at the thought you're having. So if I fail in front of, if I mess up in front of people, I'm going to be so embarrassed. And we find out how that's distorted and how it's not true. And then we have a replacement thought. And so the ultimate replacement thought is, there's some sensations going on in my body.
Yeah.
There's just, that's it. That's the majority of what we know. There's some sensations. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. There's no story beyond,
Yeah.
I feel some sensations. Must be a part of me that feels a little anxious.
It's really coming back to that brass tacks of like, oh my goodness, the future literally is just a thought in my mind. The future literally doesn't exist. All there is this moment, and in this moment, I'm feeling some sensations that I felt before and that I know are harmless.
Yeah.
All right.
There's just sensations in my body. That's great. That's great.
Kimberly says, thank you so much. That's definitely an eye-opener. Maybe I have inner conflicts that need to be resolved. Sensations and symptoms all day long. I've been sitting with them and doing the opposite of what my mind tells me. It's hard, but I can do hard things. I love that. For me, I'm petrified of dying and leaving my kids. Yeah, it's this sense of what will happen to my family, what will happen to me, what will happen after.
That's a rational anxiety, meaning like there's like part of the depth and intensity of emotion may be based in irrationality, but the rationality of leaving my 3 kids, when there's an action you can take to satisfy the anxiety that's productive, like productive for your kids and productive for your life and really will add value, it's do something. Use that anxiety to channel it into action. So what does that mean, leaving your 3 kids? So where are they going to go? What's going to happen to them? Are they taken care of financially? Do you have life insurance? Sometimes our anxieties are just messengers to be like, hey, you're ignoring something or you're not acting in alignment with what's important to you. Mm-hmm. That happens with me with money anxiety all the time, where what if I start to get low on money, it's almost like, hey man, like there's a risk if you get too low with money. If something were to go wrong, shit could really hit the fan. I'm cursing a lot tonight. I'm sorry, guys.
I don't think
I got a potty mouth.
You do have a potty mouth. That's okay.
And so for me, it's like, wow, I need I should have a bigger safety envelope because this anxiety is really telling me like, dude, you want to take care of yourself. You don't want to have either other people have to take on your burden or you just fall flat. And so, Kimberly, I would encourage you to sit down with that problem and start to brainstorm. Is there a way that I can feel reassured that, hey, my kids will be taken care of if something were to happen to me, whether it's, a legal document, talking to some friends and family about who's going to take care of them if they die. I actually have custody of a 16-year-old if his parents were to pass away. And that was a conversation we had. We had the legal documents drawn up, and it was something they were anxious about. And once they kind of settled that, it was like, okay, there was another layer of peace in their life where it's like, if something horrible were to happen to us, our child's taken care of.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
It's a beautiful, you know what it is too? It's a beautiful conversation to have with somebody.
Yeah.
It's a trusting connection. It's like, it's like one of the most adult things I've ever done. I do adult things all the time now, but that was one of the first.
That's so great.
But it's a beautiful thing. So Kimberly, sometimes anxiety is just a good messenger.
Yeah.
And you should listen to it.
Lisa says, so we asked her earlier, what is the letting down mean for you? And she says, letting down others means I can't help them or be there for them or provide for them like I think I need to be. Okay, cool. So it's like there's this thought.
I should statements.
Yeah, I
should. Shoulds. You don't like when I interrupt them. Shoulds.
I lose my train of thought every time. I'm like,
sorry.
All the universe is just should.
I'm giddy tonight. I don't know why.
It's exciting, man. It's a good time. Okay, so yeah, you've got this thought of, I think I need to be able to help them to this extent, or to be able to provide for them to this extent. And if that extent is too much, then of course nobody can be 100% helpful all the time. Like, for example, try and think of an example. It's like if your friend is suffering because of a breakup, or they lost their job. It's like you're not going to repair their relationship or get them a new job. To the extent that you can help them, it's more about just being a listener to the extent that you can. It's like if they need someone to vent to, if they need someone to open up to, if they need someone to lean on emotionally, you can do that. You can be a listener. You can make them feel like that you care about them and they're not alone. But beyond that, it's like you're not literally solving their problems, and you don't literally have to think about it all day long. And so that might be one example of what you think helping others looks like, or what it should look like, as Jim says. Then if that's different from what you can do, then of course it's going to make you feel like you're letting them down. And she says, yes, when I feel like I have let others down, I'm terrified they won't want to be around me anymore. I don't have many people that I feel close to, so I would be devastated if those people would walk away. This is just an entirely irrational expectation, right? It's like many people in your life, friends, family, have let you down, but you're still there for them because you understand, well, this person just made a mistake, and I'm not going to walk away from them just because of this small mistake. And look, knowing you, it's like you're not letting people down in some major way. Like, there's a big difference between I think what you imagine letting down someone is and doing wrong by someone. You know, if you're like stealing from people or like harming them in some way, that's different. And then in that case, it's like you kind of need to repair the relationship in a different way and change your behavior dramatically. But for you, you're describing, not being able to help them all the way, not being able to be there for them in the entire time.
Yeah.
It's like we can only do the not to say like what we can do, but the listening is probably the most that you can do at this point for a lot of the people in your life. You don't have to solve their problems.
So, Lisa, I think the question is also, how do you not feel that fear of abandonment? Like, how do you help that part of you that's so scared of being abandoned? Because not only is it have the fear of abandonment, but it's also protected by this people-pleasing part of you that's just like, I have to take on all this responsibility. I have to solve these people. I have to, or solve these problems for these people. I have to make this experience great for them. And that dynamic is so tiring and so exhausting, and it's a bit of a prison. I'm projecting a little bit of my experience on it, Lisa, too, but I have a very similar dynamic. So the question is, how do you help that part of you that feels like it's going to be abandoned not feel so like terrified and petrified all the time? And I would encourage you to ask these people, like, hey, if I drop the ball for Christmas, if I flake, would you leave me? That's a scary question to ask.
It's a powerful question.
It's a powerful question to ask, but I'll tell you that anybody who says yes, that would be what we call a potentially toxic relationship.
Yeah.
That's a tough criteria, that if you mess up a dinner or you buy a bad present, that they would leave you.
Yeah.
I would say that relationship's foundation is a little on the shaky side and maybe needs to call a contractor.
But in reality, what I think most people will find is the answer will be like, what? Of course not.
Yeah, the answer will be, huh? Yeah. No, what? We love you. Like, Jesus, we love the shit out of you. Keep cursing again. Cursing again. But Lisa, I really feel that fear of abandonment. And look, that tethering to somebody else, that kind of involuntary codependence is so heavy, and it just can seem like the end of your world. And so it makes sense that this people-pleasing part is working so hard to maintain that. And I really feel for you. But that's something that I would focus on with the coach or therapist, definitely.
Aaron says, how would you overcome the feeling of panic/fear every time you're alone and think you'll die with no one around? So, excellent question. This really cuts to the core of what people are afraid of, right? You kind of went right to the bottom of it. You're afraid you're going to die alone. And you associate that fear, that sensation of panic and anxiety with, well, if I feel this, then I might die alone. What's needed deep down is the visceral understanding, not the intellectual understanding, but the visceral, deep down understanding that these sensations cannot hurt you. That the sensations and the emotions that are experienced during a panic attack, while they are intense, they cannot hurt you. They cannot do you harm or any permanent damage or any kind of damage whatsoever. It's scary. It's frustrating. It's destabilizing, but it's not causing any damage, and it definitely can't kill you. So what's needed to see that is the opposite of what most people do. Most people run away from the emotions. They push them away. They distract themselves. They do everything they can to numb themselves and to just make those sensations go away, because they think if I let them in, something bad's going to happen. And I'm here to tell you that it's actually the opposite. What you want to do is invite the sensations in and call their bluff. Call the bluff of the mind. And all those thoughts that say, if we let this in, it's going to hurt us. If we experience this, it will be dangerous. The truth is, if you're asking this question, you've probably already experienced the worst of it. You've already experienced a panic attack, a anxiety attack. You've already experienced all those sensations, and they haven't killed you. You are still here. So if you're somebody who has experienced panic attacks, you got to really start to look at that with a little bit of clarity. Why am I still here? If this was going to kill me, wouldn't it have done it by now? If I was going to lose my mind, wouldn't I have lost it by now? If I was going to lose control, wouldn't I have lost it by now? So it's a visceral reminder that these sensations are safe. So let yourself experience them fully. Let yourself experience them completely, so that you're calling the bluff of the mind. And over time, every time that you let yourself feel it fully and not run away from it, you're basically showing that I am safe. I survived it yet again. I survived it yet again. And I'm okay. And I will be okay. By the way, everything I mentioned just now we go into more detail in our book. We have a free book that we give away to anybody. If you want that, it's called the Panic Response Plan. It goes into detail of how to overcome a lot of the anxiety and panic attacks that we've mentioned. And it's just a great book. It's about 50 pages. So very practical, very oriented around like actually how to get over the anxiety. And we give it away for free. So give us a message on Facebook or on our just YouTube, leave a comment, and we will send you that book yeah, just let us know if you're interested in that.
Now available in audio version.
Yeah.
Actually, it's always been available in audio.
It's Jim's reading it, and it's honestly, you did such a great job reading it.
Thank you, man.
I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Really helpful for anybody.
Dawn says, you guys hit the nail on the head. My mother-in-law triggers me all the time. 20 years of triggers. This year, just don't want to deal. And Dawn, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to. But it's never going to change if you don't. It's never going to change if you don't. But you don't have to. Yeah, that's like, you get to decide where you spend your energy 100%. And if you don't want to, don't go. COVID.
Yeah, we have a long comment here. We might not be able to read all of it, but basically, just for time, but basically, Kimberly says if something were to happen to her kids, the husband would be there, and that's great to hear. He sounds like a great person, and more so, the root of the issue is that just the thought of that is kind of heartbreaking, right? Just the fact that these kids are young, and just the thought of leaving them would of course be heartbreaking. And she says, I've suffered with the fear of dying since being a young child and being hit by this car accident. So this is interesting. There's this accident that happened, an event, like a traumatic event, and we are now being faced with this fear of, well, what if another one maybe happens? What if I am subject to another death? And this is a really tricky topic. Whenever we talk about our own mortality, there's a couple avenues that I always want to go in. One avenue is kind of the blunt approach of like, well, this is something that literally, every single human being has experienced and will experience. And it's just maybe the only thing that we know with certainty. And it's so interesting that the one thing that we know with certainty is we have the most fear about. And she says, she was in a coma, and she says, maybe this is why I'm scared to die. And that is possible. It's possible that it's related to this traumatic incident, but it's also possible that this is just something ingrained in the human condition, to be afraid of it. I read this amazing comment somewhere where this guy said, billions and billions of people have died so far. Not a single bad review yet. And it's just like, sometimes it's important to view it from a little more of a lighthearted angle, because it's like this experience that we don't know what it's going to be like. We don't know what it's going to truly be like until it happens. And our mind loves to take this and run wild with it. It's the ultimate event coming up, right? Like whenever you have an event coming up in your life, whether it's an interview or a lunch date or a family Christmas, our mind loves to take this event and kind of blow it up and make it seem like a big deal and make it seem like this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Death is the ultimate event because it's the one event we know will happen, and it's the one event we can never ask somebody, what is it like? And so there's just ample opportunity for the mind to take that and run wild with it. So a lot of the feelings are just our beliefs about what does it mean? We're scared of what the moment of death will be like, what the afterlife might be like, what will happen to our family and friends afterwards, what will have our lives meant. Was it okay for you to have lived the life you've lived? This is a big question that people ask near the end of their life. Was it okay to have been me? If you boil down their teaching, it's like that concern. And so
I like what you said, just to interrupt you for a second, but I like what you said about it's just like the unknown. Like, that's a big piece of it.
Yeah.
It's just the unknown. We don't know what it's going to be like. Kimberly, the exposure therapy for something like this is to imagine it happening, is to actually think about, go into whatever the fear is. And that way, it's like when you avoid the thought, or that's just like you're not sure what it is, go into these places and think about it, visualize it. What would it be like for your kids to suffer, for your husband to have to take care of them? As kind of traumatizing as that sounds, going into the fear is what can help disarm it, because if there's a part of you that can't even visualize it, that usually is an indicator of it's so painful to try to even go there. It's so unfathomable that I wouldn't know. My mind can't even go there. So then you could start writing down, well, what would it look like? But I've had to do this, and it's a really strange exercise, but it's really powerful to go into a visualization of what you're really scared of happening. Because that way your mind is going to start to form it. It's going to adapt and say, wow, this is clearly not ideal or great, but everybody's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. Life will go on, and they'll go on, and they can still have joy and happiness and meet husbands, or, and do great things, and whatever that may mean.
And we just never know, as there's you literally don't know if an event is good or bad. That traumatic accident when you were young, maybe if that hadn't happened, you would have gotten to a even worse accident the year after. The COVID thing, people say how terrible this pandemic has been, of course, but imagine that it hadn't happened. What that would mean is we would probably be way less prepared for another pandemic down the road. And if we hadn't had COVID and there was a even worse pandemic down the road, potentially that could be even worse. But now, because we've had this, I would imagine that we're probably all, and especially at the government and scientific level, we're more prepared. And so even this worst, terrible situation that we're in, it's like that can be a blessing down the road. So not to say that your passing away would be a good thing at all, but it's to say that we create all these meanings, and to say, well, if this happens, it's definitely a bad thing. Maybe, but down the road, it's like you never really know how things play out. You never really know how important a bad event could have been. And I don't say that to make it sound like a good thing. I just say that to emphasize that the meaning that we give any moment of our lives is always limited. Because we don't know what happens tomorrow or 50 years from now. And we don't know the importance of how important a crappy day might be to the next 50 years going in a positive direction.
Kimberly says, the main thing is, how will I know when something is truly wrong and when it's anxiety? I don't think I would know, since I live with a million challenging sensations every damn day. Kimberly, I would really encourage, if you haven't already, hop on a coaching call with one of us. I'd love to unpack. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do. And while a lot of the sensations are the same, Kimberly, the universal answer is work through your anxiety. Like, really commit to helping disarm this anxiety, so that then you can really tell if something is a real problem with your heart, or if it's just a panic attack. But we always advocate, get checked out. If there's any doubt, there's no doubt, go in and just make sure that everything's okay. But
also, I want to challenge you. There's no way you're experiencing a million sensations. Okay, there isn't that many. There's like tingling, there's like numbness here and there. It's like, if you made a list, there's probably like 20. And if you got familiar with that and you worked through them one by one, you can figure out, like, okay, I guess this is anxiety. I guess this is just from standing all day yesterday, and this is from anxiety, and this is from, working with my hands too much. And it's kind of going through and just getting familiar. It's your body, after all, and getting familiar with the sensations that you're experiencing. Writing things down can make a big difference here, where it's not just staying in your head, but there's actually a record. But as Jim said, I feel like there's a lot we can unpack. And so please do schedule a call with us. We'd love to chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda says, for me, I'm at a point in my life that I'm really beginning to be okay with losing people. I guess it's because I've lost family and friends this year. It's okay to have a healthy fear of dying, but I've learned in my experiences that living with fear steals your joy and peace. I only fear of getting in a car wreck on 65 to and from work. That's a interstate in Tennessee. But just this week, my son drove a longer distance than I was comfortable with, and I was anxious, but I didn't allow myself to panic. I prayed and checked in with him, and he made it home safely. Not sure I helped any, but sharing anyway. Well, no, you're always helping if you share an honest story, Amanda, so I appreciate you sharing so much.
Yeah, other people are going through it too.
Yeah, and as far as, not allowing yourself to panic, I think practicing those techniques really can help. Like just being aware, like Enis was saying, just cutting off that feedback loop. There are sensations in my body. Like there's just sensations in my body. Anything else is a story. It's a future predictor. It's distorted. And it sounds like Amanda did a little bit of exposure with letting her son drive and just dealing with it. And so Amanda, you gave your body an opportunity to cope and heal with a situation you were uncomfortable with. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So beyond that,
Yoli says hello.
What's up, Yoli?
Good to see you.
Amanda says, feel the fear. Very powerful. Yeah, it is powerful. Feel it. You have to go into whatever you're scared of, and you can go in intelligently and gradually. You don't have to dive in.
Isn't it crazy? If I had to summarize everything we're saying, is like, feel the fear.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you feel fear? Well, continue to actually feel it.
Yeah, feel it.
Yeah.
Just feel the physical.
The actual sensations. Let's see. We got one more says, I heard amazing things. Yeah, we got some nice reviews saying how great Jim is, and he really is, guys. If you have the opportunity to have a free call with him, really, really worth it. Beyond that, if you want to wrap up, we got some announcements. We had our first group coaching session this week. Went really, really well.
It's awesome.
And so we're opening that up. We're going to be having classes every Monday and Thursday for now. So if you're interested in having a group coaching session with us, feel free to reach out. It's over Zoom. It's twice a week. And basically it's a classroom setting where we go very, very in depth with the practical, what to do, how to do it. There's plenty of opportunity to ask both of us questions because we're both there leading it.
Yeah, you'll leave with the technique. You'll leave with knowing having learned about the technique and practiced the technique to ultimately get you through these panic attacks or anxiety, to start to kill the intensity, to start to kill the duration. And just so you feel capable, it's very, very hands-on, and like you're going to do it. And this is exactly what you'll do here. And here's where you use it. And then we always leave time at the end to take questions. And then the Thursday session is much more interactive, where we take more questions that just in general, how are you doing? What's been going on? And we give you, practical specified techniques to work with it.
So super, super cool program to check out. Hit us up on the free call. We're here for you if you want to talk. Check out the YouTube page. A lot of free videos there. Amazing content that can be supplemental to everything we've talked about. And
just shoot us a message on Facebook here, and we'll send you the links. Also, the book, The Panic Response Plan. If you're interested in that, shoot us a message on Facebook. To set up a free call, there's a link down there, or you can still shoot us a message on Facebook, or comment on any of our YouTube videos. Guys, if you have videos that you want on YouTube, if you have suggestions for topics you want covered in the live stream, anything, shoot us a message here, comment on a video on YouTube. Shoot us an email at hello@innersolutions.academy. Just contact us, man. We're 100% here to help you. So the more feedback we get, the more topics we get, we're pumping stuff out. Stay tuned on our YouTube page. We've got a holiday anxiety series coming out within the next couple weeks.
And
we're working hard, dude.
There's a lot of stuff coming out.
We're working.
The general message that I want to end on tonight is just start to get some intentionality going. If you are nervous in any way about the rest of this month or the next year, 2021, what is that going to be like? Well, start to set some intentions, reflect. What do you want this month to be about? Do you want it to be about family? Do you want it to be about gifts? Do you want to be about yourself? All of it's fine. Just be intentional and start to think about, like, what are the values that you want to move towards? What are the creative ways you can make sure that you're not alone, or that you are with the people that you want to be with? And just the big thing that we say is like, you're not this victim of circumstance. You are a co-creator of your life. You're somebody who has tremendous ability to reshape your environment, to change your circumstances. So a lot of that begins with intention, deciding that this is what I want, and then just making a plan. Like, what would I need to do to get there? And then from there, the sky's the limit. From there, there's so many options, so many different therapy models and tools and techniques. And it's just a matter of getting to that place where you're actually ready to live to that intention. So take some time to get clear on that.
Lots of love to you guys. Take it easy on the holiday shopping. Remember, the holidays are just about enjoying each other. And as always, no matter where you are, no matter how long you've been suffering, you're never stuck. You might just need some support. For Enis, I'm Jim. We're Inner Solutions. Thank you guys so much. Lots of love. And we'll see you next week.